Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.
Until then, we are wrestling with WWE Fastlane. It is tomorrow, and if you're smart, how should people listen to it, Scooter?
On the remix. Sorry, on the remix.
Alright? And the first match out is Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman. Yeah, this is an interesting rivalry to say the least. Obviously, this is going to a WrestleMania match, but how do you see this one playing out, Scooter?
God, I'm wondering, does Shane say he's gonna not get back in the ring, then when WrestleMania comes around, he gets that urge again? I like. I'm I'm kind of expecting Daba Kato in this to show up and help Shane win.
Forgot about that guy.
And we get a giant versus giant match.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They wrestled on Raw Underground, didn't they?
They fought on Raw Underground. And I can't remember how they turned out. It turned out bad for one of them.
I think it turned bad for everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna someone Shane's bringing in someone.
Kalik, what say you, Kaliko?
A delay until I feel like Raw, they kind of gave you the formula of what's going to happen. I would be surprised if that shit happens. So it's just a hold off because it's just giving them a reason to fight at Mania because it's a two-nighter, so they got some spots to fill in this bitch. And Braun ain't got shit to do, so put him on Shane.
Alright. And next up, and I can actually believe that this is happening.
Well, hold on. Wait, before we do that, why we go over the matches that were made official last night? In Shinsuke Nakamura and Seth Rollins.
Now, that seems interesting considering that it was supposed to be Cesaro versus Seth Rollins, but obviously they're saving that for Mania.
Yep. It's gotta be a good match. Almost a perfect example of having an upper card you don't really exactly know what to do with anymore. Probably will low key steal the show.
I remember going to a Survivor Series in Los Angeles, and that was probably the best match on the card was Rollins versus Nakamura on that show. And I don't really know what to do with Nakamura anymore. It seemed like he was maybe low-key getting a push during the Roman
Gauntlet.
Adam Pearce rivalry, and then they never followed up on it.
I mean, it's interesting that he's competing against Seth Rollins, who 2 years ago was the star of a gauntlet match he didn't win.
true, fair enough. But I mean, Seth was already a big star when he was in that match, and it seems like Nakamura kind of gets to the tippy. He has his fingertips on the tippy top, and then they just kind of drop him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that seems about right.
I mean, honestly, I think he's just happy to be in America because he's the guy that loves American culture, loves smoking cigarettes. I think he just feels like this doesn't define his legacy per se. Because New Japan,
Yeah.
because New Japan defines his legacy more so than WWE. But I mean, becoming the first the first actual Japanese person to win the Royal Rumble is no small feat, right? So
Wasn't
it's
Asuka
just a
the
matter.
first time? Wasn't that Asuka?
They both won it that year.
Oh, they both
They
won.
both on the same show. So.
They both won it on the same year. So,
Okay.
but he's the first Japanese male to win the men's Royal Rumble. So,
Yes.
I mean, no small feat. I mean,
Yeah.
Could he be a male version of Asuka? Sure, but that just tells you how hard it is to crack that upper echelon. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it's homegrown guys that know what they're doing. Like Asuka's in a sense where there's a lot of homegrown women, but they never really trusted them with the ball like that. So by de facto, it kind of went to Asuka because the crowd was clamoring for it, and she was putting herself in a position to have them look at her, right?
Right.
Like Nakamura could only do so much, you know, in the sense that Roman was back, Seth is back. He's on a stacked. Like, there's only going to only be so many people at the top, right? Seth came back and he's not even like the top guy on SmackDown. So that says a lot. And that dude's done everything.
True. I could even make the argument, Seth doesn't really need the belt right now.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah. So, who wins the match, Scooter?
Seth.
Delico?
Gave all that props to Nakamura, but Seth gonna win that bitch.
Next match, and I can't believe this is actually happening. Randy Orton is wrestling Alexa Bliss.
I said this would happen. Oh, I said this would happen at WrestleMania, but
Well, obviously this is the transition to WrestleMania, where the Fiend will resurrect, and they will have their blow off.
I think we're gonna get some sort of twisted amalgamation of what we're supposed to think is Alexa Bliss. Probably maybe even a female Fiend that might actually be Bray Wyatt underneath that.
Bray Wyatt in the wig.
Interesting fact. This is the first intergender pay-per-view match in just over 18 years.
Was the last China and no, Jamie Noble
Armageddon.
and Nydia. Chavo Guerrero and Jacqueline.
Chris Jericho and Christian against Lita and Trish.
Oh wow! I completely forgot about that.
Damn! Holy shit! Throwback. Talk about your throwback.
Really? So,
Yep.
that being said, who wins the match? Who wins the match, Scooter?
No one. And quite honestly, if there's any winner, it's probably gonna be Alexa.
Because the aid of the Fiend.
Most likely, yes.
What say you, Kaliko?
I think it's going to be a holdover. Fiend comes back. Randy's like, fuck this shit, I'm out. Like, I thought I burned him. And he's like, fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. That's going to be Randy.
Alright. I don't think I could really add anything to that.
like my singing, damn it. No.
Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. I think this should have ended like 2 Raws ago, but here we are. Who wins, Scooter?
Yeah, again, another match I said would happen happening earlier. Once again, and this probably should have been a barroom brawl. You can have a lot of fun with the Irish Scottish stereotypes. But no, most part, it's got to be Drew since it's now Drew and Lashley officially at WrestleMania. I mean, something tells me Sheamus might end up getting the match. We'll probably see Drew win. And on Raw, we'll probably see Sheamus and Drew battle once again, and Sheamus this time gets in and then beats Drew. I mean, we're only 4 Raws away from Mania.
Right, and you could almost say like this paid preview was somewhat of a throwaway because like they're already announcing matches for WrestleMania, and this is kind of like it almost doesn't matter, so to speak. You know what I mean?
It might as well be happening in your house.
Exactly. What about you, Kaliko? What are your thoughts?
I felt like I think it's going to be Drew. I don't think Sheamus. I think Sheamus should be in the match, but the way that they ended that Raw, it looked like it was because everyone was screaming Fatal 4-Way, but it looked like it was that night was the title eliminator, right? Like Miz was trying to make his case for the chip. He takes the L, goes up after Bad Bunny, right?
Right.
Sheamus loses. It's weird how they're going to do with him because he's one of those dudes where it's like the L isn't. It doesn't hurt him as much because in his mind it's more about Lashley sticking his nose in the business, and I wouldn't put it past Lashley to put him in, ask him to put him in the match or something of that sort, or he beats Drew or beats Lashley and makes a case to be put in the match. I don't. Will that happen as far as them two losing? More likely not. So I'm thinking Sheamus is just going to get put in by de facto or some sort.
I mean, if
unless Drew loses to Sheamus and Sheamus making the case that motherfucker I should be in the triple threat because I just beat the dude that y'all said is going to beat Lashley or that is facing Lashley.
If there is any fatal 4-way, the 4th man is going to be Keith Lee.
Oh, that's a name we haven't heard for quite some time.
Wouldn't put it past him.
Is that
Me.
is that because he didn't really fairly get his match against Lashley at the last pay per view?
That's very accurate off point. I hate to kind of say this, but
Take the pen.
no, it's race may have something to do with it. In that they could claim that they've for the
Diversity
first
and inclusion.
two African American superstars are in the main event of WrestleMania.
And the Scottish guy.
So, I mean, that's a guess in my end. If they move towards a triple threat, they'll move towards a fatal four-way.
Interesting.
True that, unless they go Sheamus, Keith Lee, but I don't see. I mean, I see the history there, but you know.
That brings us to our next match. Intercontinental Championship match, Big E versus Apollo Crews. It's been quite some time since we last talked about Apollo. And honestly, I think I like this version. He did a reverse Kofi Kingston, and it's actually working for him. Right, Scooter?
I mean, he's essentially a modern day Farouk. In a different concept. Yeah, it is risky for him. Back when on the independent scene, when he was Nation, and I'm surprised they haven't gone with the name change yet to fit in with the. And I'm sorry, I have to cackle and snicker a little bit at the fact that the gimmick is he's a Nigerian prince.
And people are getting emails from him.
I mean, you might as well call his finisher the 404 after this, or the call center. Oh, I forget what the.
See, the 404 would sound like the ATL, which is Austin Theory.
But, oh God, I forget what the name for the scam is, but and it fucking you know, working for Apollo Crews, which speaks volumes, and I think this is hopefully this is where we get Big E finally in the main event after this. So I'm gonna say Apollo wins.
What say you, Kaliko?
I could see his point because the heel turn has to go somewhere, right? But I feel Big E has to solidify himself as an IC champ. Like, I mean, and beating Apollo Crews a bunch of times is not it's a way, but it's not going to be the way, right? So I expect him to win. I expect him to continue on progressing, and I expect him to be in the title picture, SummerSlam-ish, At least by Survivor Series, he should be in the main title picture.
So we got one Big E, one Apollo Crews. It wouldn't surprise me if, they put the belt on Apollo just so Big E has somebody to wrestle at WrestleMania and kind of get the W back. And you get your the run of Apollo Crews is kind of validated while still having Big E look strong. That being said, I think Big E's gonna win. And maybe we get Nakamura. Maybe we get Nakamura and Big E at Mania.
I like how we give all these people their props. So we go, that being said, they getting their ass handed.
Exactly. But I do agree with you to some degree, Kaliko. I do feel like, they gave Big E this run, and I think they just need to ride it out. If I'm WWE, I'm not gonna want to give Big E, that main event shot right now when our biggest star is Roman Reigns and we are 100% behind him and nobody is going to touch him. You know what I mean? So I would, leave it be a slow burn. He's the main face champion on SmackDown. Let him be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, eventually get there. Because if they send him up there, they just sending him to slaughter. Especially as long as Paul is in the picture. So
A Sonata push.
pretty much, if they do Big E like Sonata, I know some.
Speaking of a Sonata push, and I think that's a new thing, a Sonata push. Women's Tag Team Championship match: Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler against Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. What's your favorite vegetable, Kaliko?
I don't think this is gonna be a squash. I mean, I just think it's gonna be a bigger reason to split the wedge between Bianca and Sasha, but they don't need that, right? Unless Nigel is split. Reginald, yeah, Nigel. I'm thinking Nigel McGuinness. Unless Reginald is gonna be switching sides anytime soon, because he feels like he was meant to be with Sasha anyway, and Carmella's just like, I don't know where the hell she is, but
she fired Reginald, so
yeah, and then Nia kind of picked him up, and yeah, he's just like a manager hobo at this point, just like nomad. He just going place to place.
I mean, I love the idea that while Nia was taking, Nia and Shayna were taking Reginald shopping, and Nia was like paying attention and whatnot. Shayna was like, a guy.
My problem with that was why was Shayna there to begin with? Like she didn't. Yeah, they're tag team champions. She didn't need to be. She doesn't need to be with Nia 24/7.
Because they gotta show that they're a team. Damn it! That sounds like something Vince would say. Show that they're a team. That they actually hang out with each other, even though they don't like each other. Yeah.
Tag team partners got a hug.
Pretty much. Kind of like the Team Hell No theory.
Yeah.
See, this is where I'm wondering if they're going to give the belt to Sasha and Bianca just to say that the tag team champions will be facing each other at WrestleMania.
They kind of alluded to that at on the KO show, like Shawn Michaels did, John Cena and Shawn Michaels did at 24 or 23.
But then they immediately gave up the titles the next night.
True, but they was tag team champions.
And
Or
so
WrestleMania.
were Ray and Eddie when they battled at 21.
Yeah, but that wasn't for a singles championship.
I'm saying they're looking for a way to give Sasha and Bianca more of a acclaim and more of a moment, so that it's not unforgettable.
In all honesty, I think that they need to keep the belts on Baszler and Jax because you get an extra women's match out of WrestleMania. You know what I mean?
I mean, given that, aside from the Riot Squad, Naomi, Lana, Mandy Rose, and Dana Brooke, who's really left?
See, I would have thought Lana would have been a tag champ by now. Because I thought the whole story was for Lana. I mean, I guess Lana's comeuppance was beating Nia in the tables match. But I thought, like, it just would have been better if she was a tag champ. Because all that hard work paid off. Even if it was for, like, 2 weeks. Shit. Because that would have been the ultimate, like,
Right.
disrespect. Like, the ultimate payback. But, I don't know.
And that brings us to our main event, Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan for the Universal Championship. Who wins? Who?
With Edge as a special guest enforcer. Roman. It's Roman. Fastlane history due to repeat itself.
Roman for the win.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Rico?
Yep, Roman, because if 2014 or 2015 taught us anything, Daniel Bryan at Fastlane against Roman is the slaughter. Roman, because the spear versus spear thing is going to be what matters. Although I would not be surprised if somehow Daniel gets put in this match. Because the problem with the way that they're booking it is, if this was one night, I could see it being like, I could see them, trying to keep it 1-on-1. 2 nights, they got a lot of shit to fill, and I don't think Daniel Bryan in the Andrade the Giant Memorial Battle Royal would be the greatest use of his talents.
And let's be honest, what would you rather see, Roman and Edge or Daniel Bryan and Edge?
Well, hold on right here because Kaliko brings up a good point. Could they maybe doing a Kota Ibushi with Roman Reigns? Maybe he loses the belt to Daniel Bryan, and then he runs the gauntlet, takes Daniel Bryan out the first night of Mania, and then wrestles Edge on the second night of the Mania.
That is a very interesting possibility, and I can't imagine Edge as a special enforcer for any other reason other than that now.
What about you, Kaliko? What are your thoughts on that possibility happening?
That's why I was like, because if Jay was the special enforcer, you kind of see where it was going to go down with. But Edge Edge actually being the person to fuck Bryan over would be way more consequential than Jay fucking over Daniel Bryan. Because I could see Edge doing it in the sense of, hey kids, this was my last shot. I've been gone for so long. I want this mano a mano. I had to do what I had to do.
So this is going to come down to whether Edge wants the title more or he wants to beat Roman more.
More, exactly.
Right. So the thing of it is, do you? And we're maybe way too deep into this, but do you see Edge actually beating Roman at WrestleMania, or is this just a feather in Roman Reigns' cap and a little extra into his title reign?
I mean, look at WrestleMania Roman and look at all the feathers in his cap. There's only one person who he has not beat at WrestleMania in a singles match, and that's Brock fucking Lesnar. So everyone else is ran through the slaughter. So I, it's another notch under the belt.
Um, that being said, I mean, you could even make the argument like, he beat Triple H at WrestleMania for the champion in the main event. But could you really say that he's had like a major WrestleMania moment?
I mean,
31
main
was
eventing 4 years in a row.
true, but he got slaughtered by Brock at 33, I believe.
34.
34. He had a so-and-so match against Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, so 31 through 34 was his run. So 31, we all know what happened to Seth cash in. 32, he got the title. 33, he ended the streak. 34 is Brock beating that ass. That's why I said, other than Brock, who else? Like, that's his Achilles heel. Everybody else, he's pretty much spot on.
True. I see what you mean there. But, obviously the moment with the set that 1 year. Second one was, I guess you could say putting another loss on Undertaker's record was a big deal. But, again, I think this will be the WrestleMania that really defines Roman Reigns. You know what I mean?
I have a very suspicious feeling that somebody is paying attention to these statistics. And oh, good Lord. Because I know last year there was so much talk of a Brock Edge match.
There was?
Yes, Lesnar and Edge. Now, oh God, if someone brings that up on WWE TV, then we know Brock is showing up to again play some sort of factor in Roman losing at WrestleMania.
Okay. Interesting. I think we covered a lot of interesting topics. That being said, and I think we already covered this. This pay-per-view is pretty is not really important going into WrestleMania. It's kind of just a blimp on the radar, correct?
Most likely. 97%.
Somewhat. Depending on like certain matches, yeah, of course. But for upper card, it has a consequence depending on how they go. The SmackDown side, there are some consequences that can happen. The Raw side seems more set in stone. So, yeah, the SmackDown side is got some shit that can get shaken. Because Raw side, I think the only wild card is what if Sheamus beats Drew?
Fair enough.
And other than that, everything else is kind of like heading to where it seems to be heading. By SmackDown, what if Apollo beats Big E? What if Nakamura beats Seth? What if Daniel Bryan wins the title? What if Edge makes it a hokey thing? What if so that's why.
Alright. I think that'll conclude our coverage of WWE Fastlane. We will have the review of that show next time. And until then, you could watch our interview with Armani Chaos this upcoming Wednesday. Until then, you could please like, subscribe, comment both on YouTube and Xbox, and follow the show at our official Twitter handle at Wrestling with E. And you can find us individually on Twitter as well at JamesJ993. Where can they find you, Nico?
You can find me trying not to cater too much to my kids' birthday wishes and demands at I Am Kaliko.
And where can they find Scooter Dust?
As always, you can find me right behind you. And on Twitter at ScooterDust and hold it down for the UNB Network at UNBS.
For Kaliko Yachts, Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.